going?
All good.
All righty, we're live and I'm letting folks in.
Right. That's good to see so many people here tonight.
Mm-hmm. Some familiar names.
Mm-hmm. Actually had quite a registration. I think we had about 125 people signed up for tonight.
Wow.
Yeah. And we'll get started in just a few minutes. We'll give everybody a chance to kind of get in and settle in. We do have, of course, our chat feature tonight, so feel free to jump in and say hello. Oh, hi, Anne. Nice to see you tonight.
How long has it been since we've actually seen each other?
I know, it's been a while.
This is awesome.
Yeah, you look great.
Thank you, as do you.
Thank you.
Australia, so it must be like pretty early in the morning over there, huh, Leslie?
10 a.m.
Okay, not too bad.
Yeah, not too early. It's good timing for me.
Good.
All right, well, I think we should go ahead and begin, Mackenzie, and we'll just let people join in as they arrive. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And welcome all of you to our September Network and Learn. Today's here in the United States. It's September 8th in the evening, and it looks like we have people from all across the world. So I'm not sure what day it is for you, but we're glad that whatever day it is that you've made it to join our team tonight. Our topic is to build your UDL professional learning network, personal professional learning network. We added that extra P because we do think that these professional learning networks are curated and designed specifically by you for you. So we're calling it our PPLN. And this is, of course, hosted by the UDL IRN. This is our Network and Learn series. The Professional Learning Committee from Network and Learn hosts and facilitates these, and we invite people from all over the UDL community to come and share in these events, either as a panelist or participant. All of our roles are important, and so we're glad to have you tonight sharing and having conversations about professional learning networks and maybe creating a new one here tonight. Tonight's moderators are myself. My name is Sue Harden, and I work with the UDL IRN on all kinds of things, including the Network and Learns and professional learning, certifications and credentials, and all things UDL. And I'm joined tonight to moderate this with my colleague, Mackenzie Nicholas. Mackenzie, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all here. I see tons of familiar faces, so it's good to see you again. I'm Mackenzie Nicholas. I am the Network Engagement Manager for the UDL IRN at CAST. Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome. And Mackenzie is all things, everything UDL IRN. So whenever people say UDL IRN, they think Mackenzie, and they're right. So we're going to just start our session today and ask you to enter some information about your professional learning network. Mackenzie's going to put this link in the chat. So this is a Google form just as a way to curate your information regarding your ways that your social media and the ways that you share. So it asks you to give your name and your where you're at, your city, state, country, also your email address, and then any of the handles or account names that you want to share with this group so that we can find each other when we're on LinkedIn, or when we're on Twitter, or when we're on Instagram, or whatever social media you're using. And we're also going to give you the link to the Google Sheet that this form will produce. That way you can see who's in our session today and connect with them. We thought we'd do it this way instead of trying to everybody to fill out the Google Sheet. You know how crazy that gets when you've got lots of people involved in that. So we're going to ask you to fill it out via the form, but you have access to the sheet that it creates so that you can see who's in the room and who you might want to connect with. So we'll put that in the chat and kind of
Hey,
put that back.
So real quick, will you open that up so folks can have access?
I didn't do that, did I? I didn't. Okay.
I'm not able to view it.
Well, thank you. Let me first get my chat up so I can see these things happening in the background. All right. And let me just escape out here really quick, apologize, and find that. They're not able to view which one, the sheet?
Nope, the Google form. You haven't opened it up, so they're accepting responses.
You're kidding me. All right, everybody. These are my peeps now here. So in the settings, all right. But I turn that off. Try it now. I get a thumbs up somewhere.
I'm your one response ready, but I have an IRN account, so.
Ah, got it. All right. All right. That's why it worked for you. Thanks, everybody. All right, back to where we were going. All right. So just to encourage you all to make sure you're tweeting tonight, and we'll use the hashtag UDLIRN. So if something profound, we know something profound will get said. When something profound gets said, make sure you're tweeting it, sharing it, and connecting with others. So here's who you were waiting to hear from. I'm going to try to wrap this up quickly. We have a wonderful panel tonight of PLN experts, people who have been using and curating and sharing on social media for many years. And so they bring together lots of different perspectives. Kelly Culp will be joining us. She is an English teacher at Columbus North High School at BCSC, which is Bartholomew Consolidated School District in Indiana. And she's also, full disclosure, a member of our UDL IRN Professional Learning Committee. So we're delighted to have Kelly join us. In addition, we've got Midi Johnson. Mindy is a director of digital communications and outreach at CAST. I'm sure many of you have connected with, tweeted with, shared emails with Mindy before. So we're glad to have her depth of knowledge to be shared with us tonight. And also we have Dr. Eric Moore, who is director of, oops, sorry, Eric. Okay. And there we go, Learning Technology at Kennedy Krieger Institute. And Eric is also outgoing chair. Is that right, Eric? Outgoing, or are you still currently chair of the UDL IRN Higher Ed SIG?
I've got like 2 or 3 weeks left.
Great.
I'm not sure.
And so we're delighted to have all three of these. They'll be talking to you specifically about their journey creating their professional learning network. And so we'll be hearing from them in just a moment. I just wanted to start with just a quick introduction for anybody who's new to what is this PLN or this PPLN thing that we're talking about. This is by no means a agreed upon definition from researchers and educators. This is simply one I sort of put together as I was trying to get some good background information about sharing this with you tonight. But what we hear people talking about in education is that a PPL is a system. So it's a system built around participation. It's about people coming together and sharing. We all come at it from various ways. So there's different ways that we participate and different ways that we choose to connect. So just like our students have variability, we have variability in the way that we like to learn. And that's good. That's what makes it the personal part. You can decide how you want to interact and what you want to do. You could engage in a wholehearted and very committed way, or you might be just somebody who comes in and reads and curates, or you might just be out on the edges and lurking, and all of those are okay. And you do it with your own goals, needs, interests, practices in mind, and the way that you're going, preferences for how you're going to get your information, how you're going to store it. But the beautiful part about this is this learning network can happen anywhere, anytime. You'll hear people talk about this. It's the people that make the system, and the system changes because of you, because of your participation. You have an effect on the system as well as being a part of it. So it's integrated, it's integral, it's interconnected, and that's what makes the PLN so powerful. And it is a great way for shaping your practice. So just a quick definition so we're kind of all on the same page. And now I'm going to give it over to Mindy. Mindy's going to talk about curating people and practices. Mindy, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and just put myself on mute and give it up for you.
All right, thanks, Sue. And hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about one of my favorite topics. I'm Midi Johnson, as Sue said. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am the Director of Digital Communications and Outreach at CAST. I actually started at CAST in 2004 as an intern and made it all the way to director of something. I kind of carved out my own little role at CAST. So if you ever have questions about my journey at CAST, please feel free to contact me. I am a former special education high school teacher. So that's my formal background in education. I'm passionate about accessibility. I'm passionate about inclusion. I'm also passionate about making and maintaining professional connections through social media. And I'm also passionate about dogs. And you may hear my dog in the background barking. And if you send me funny dog videos, I will laugh and like and share. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. I will put my, my contact information in the chat. You can email me. I love to talk with educators. I love to talk with education enthusiasts, and especially universal design for learning enthusiasts. My PLN journey actually started when I was a teacher. And one thread that sort of goes through my journey of building my personal and professional learning network is that I'm constantly looking for connections. I'm looking for expanding my knowledge. I'm looking for new ways to learn and new ways to share and new ways to connect other people. It's not just about connecting myself with other people, but connecting people with each other. And that, I don't know where I learned that. It's just kind of something that it's something about myself as I've just learned to embrace about myself is that I like to make connections. So when I was a teacher from 1996 to 2004, my PLN were my colleagues, my colleagues at work, my students. I learned from everyone that I was working with. It was all in person. It was not digital. Social media was just a glimmer in Mark Zuckerberg's eye. But we did do personal professional learning network activities. So we had book studies. We had, I was a co-teacher. I was a special education teacher that was in general education classes. My co-teachers became part of my PLN. And eventually, I mostly co-taught in science classes by the time my tenure was ending as a teacher. And I sort of pushed my way into the science department, and I became part of their PLN. So their department meetings became part of how I learned more, and then I could share my knowledge with them as well. Then I went back to grad school in 2004, and I any of you are currently working educators, I know Kelly is, but I'm sure many of you also are. You always have a side gig, like a side hustle when you're when you're a teacher. At least I did. I had two. And when I went to grad school, I couldn't break that habit. So my side hustle when I was in grad school is that I was a teaching fellow at Harvard, and in the undergrad quad, and I was a teaching fellow for a graduate, an undergraduate course in human sexuality. And that's a whole other webinar, by the way, but I will skip that for now. If you ever want to find out about that, just let me know. It was an undergrad course in psychology. The only way that I could actually get my students to talk to me and interact with me was through Facebook. And again, it was the year after Mark Zuckerberg actually left Harvard. So Facebook was very contained at that time to university students. And so you had to have a university account to get into Facebook. I got an account. I was like, I don't understand this. Why are you all talking about each other when you're right here? What's going on? But I did connect with my students that way. I actually am still connected with some of those students through Facebook. But I was like, this is kind of okay. And then in 2000, let's see, and then I must have joined LinkedIn somewhere in there. I'm not really sure, probably looking for a permanent job. I joined LinkedIn because that's where we kind of went. It was before Monster and all of those things to find jobs. And then in 2007, one of my colleagues at CAST was like, you know what, there's this thing called Twitter. And I think it's going to blow up. I think it's going to be something. And I'm learning a lot from the people that are there. So I joined Twitter in 2007. And for the most part, it just kind of sat there. My first tweet, I actually looked it up. It said, awake too early on a Saturday, which is such a cliche Twitter. Like, I'm surprised it wasn't about a sandwich I ate, because that's what social media microblogging was at the time, was just like pushing stuff out there. And what I've learned through building my personal and professional learning network through social media is that pushing stuff out is only a little tiny part of what building that personal and professional learning network is and what it can be. In May 2013, we started UDL Chat, which is a bi-monthly chat on Twitter. I started it with Katie Novak, Ron Rogers, Elizabeth Stein, and Kit Hart. Ron Rogers and I are the only ones left hanging on. We've had many hosts and moderators come and go. We have 6 right now. But that UDL Chat presence on Twitter, it changed the way that I thought about how I consume professional learning and how I connect with people. And that was really profound for me. It really changed, it sounds so cliche again, but it really changed my professional life to be able to connect with people from all over the world about topics that I cared about. And one of the misconceptions about social media is that it's very self-centered. And there are parts of social media that are very self-centered. It's very self-serving. It's all about, let me take the selfie, got the duck lips. I'm going to talk about myself and my wonderful life, #living my best life. What it can be for us, though, however, is that, and what we need to be aware of is that social media is first and foremost social. You don't walk into a dinner party full of strangers and start sharing your ideas on your favorite topics and expect to be invited back. Now, what I mean by that is that the important part of walking into a dinner party where you know no one, you don't know what they're interested in, you don't know where they've been, you don't know their stories, is to listen. And to listen effectively through social media is to lurk. I call it lurking, but it's less creepy on social media. It can be kind of creepy on social media, but it's much more creepy in real life if you lurk around watching people throughout your day. But you can learn so much just by listening, just by liking something. And again, it doesn't have to be Twitter. Twitter is my chosen platform for my personal professional learning network, but it's certainly not the only one that's out there. And how you find those people is starting by listening. There's an 80-20 rule in social media marketing, which says that 80% of your social media posts should inform, educate, and entertain your audience. 20% should be about self-promotion. And unfortunately, that misconception that social media is about pushing out information, it creates a vacuum. People don't want to invite you back to the dinner party. So part of what I like to, and again, this is about finding the right people that you want to connect with, is my 80-20 rule for your personal professional learning network is that 80% of the content that you share should be amplifying others. So amplifying in social media means that you like something, you share something, you retweet something. You take a blog post and you share somebody else's blog post and you make sure to tag them when you share it. 80% of your content that you are pushing out should be something like that, or replying to a question, or just interacting with other people. 20% should be talking about the stuff that you want to, putting your new blog post out there, or sharing your idea, or sharing your great thing that you just made, or anything that you want to share on social media. So when you go to create and build and find the people that you want to find, and we can talk about this also in the breakout rooms, but it's important to set goals for yourself. Ask yourself questions. What do you want to learn? What do you want to contribute? Who are the people that you want to engage with? And then remember what I said about lurking? When you find the people on the platform that you choose that you want to follow, lurk on who they're following. That is one of the best ways to find new voices to add to your personal professional learning network, is lurking on other people's friends lists, which again sounds a little creepy, but we're all friends here, so you know what I mean. Don't do it creepily. That's not fun. And then by the end, you got to UDL your PLN, right? PLNs are all about teaching and learning. And either you're the teacher or you're the learner, it all intermingles. We know this about learning and about teaching. It's all overlapping, it's all mixed up. So why not think about it through a UDL lens? Why not think about engagement, representation, and expression? And think about how you can UDL your PLN. I have lots more, but I'll let other people speak. I want to hear them. I want to hear them too.
Thank you, Mindy. That was amazing. I didn't know, when did Twitter start? You joined in 2007, Twitter began?
I joined in 2007. Twitter, I believe, started in 2005 or 6.
Ooh. And how early is
but the Facebook thing is always what, like a year after Zuckerberg. That's my claim to fame for Facebook.
And how early on a Saturday was it? How early is too early?
I should look that up. Wait, hang on. I've got the link to the tweet. You go ahead and
you can come put it in the chat.
I will put it in the chat. It was only 8:16. I was young. I was young and 8:16 in the morning was early. Sorry.
Well, thank you for sharing that journey. And I think one of the things I found really interesting was, PLNs have been around, as you said, from book study times, right? This is not a new thing. We just have different ways of doing it now. And I think that's important. I mentioned in the chat that I am definitely an overachieving lurker, because I don't think I post about 20%. I probably post about 5%, but mostly retweet. And I thought that was not a good thing, but now I'm glad to hear.
And actually retweeting isn't lurking, that's amplifying. So you have moved from the lurking to the amplifying, and those are important, absolutely crucial parts of being part of a social media based PLN.
Thank you. Thanks, Mindy. All right, now we're going to hear from Eric, and Eric's going to be talking about sustaining your PLN. So Eric, we'll just give it over to you.
Sounds good. Well, Mindy's way of reaching out to the world through social media is somewhat intimidating to some people. Like there's so many voices out there all the time. I remember in my earlier days of using Twitter, I would log in and I would scroll down to the bottom of my feed and then try to catch up, and pretty quickly that became, that's not going to happen, so it just kind of feels like if you've got that fear of missing out, like I often do, it's like if I come onto Twitter and like, who knows how many amazing things I missed in the last 6 hours that I wasn't on Twitter, and there's no way for me to go back and look at all. It's just like a roulette, like hopefully when I come on, I'm going to see something amazing and I'm going to miss out on 20 other things. And that's just the way it is. But sometimes you want to have a PLN or PPLN that sustains a focused conversation for an extended time on a specific issue. And that's really where I've been focusing my efforts a lot for these last few years. So one example of this was the UDL Higher Education Network, which I'm, like Sue had mentioned, I'm going to be stepping down as chair and founder of that pretty soon. But we've been running that for, I think, 6 years now. And that whole organization began at a UDL IRN conference in Orlando, in which I had recently taken a position as a UDL specialist at a Research One institution. And as far as I knew, I was the only person in the world who had that job title. And it was very lonely and very siloed. And like, I'm trying to create everything from the ground up and figure out what's my next step. And I have no models, no examples, nobody really to talk to. There was a lot of conversation about like, well, it's pretty much like K-12, isn't it? And like, no, it's not. Like, it's really very different from K-12. But it was hard to find other people to share with. So at that conference, Jamie Basham introduced me to Jody Black. And Jody Black is at Fleming College, where she is a UDL specialist. And we were just about, bouncing out around the room with excitement at finding somebody who does this. And Kate Snyder showed up there too. And Kate was at Nova Scotia Community College, and she is a UDL specialist. And we were just on cloud nine. And we spent the rest of the conference hanging out, the three of us, thick as thieves, like drawing ideas on napkins, and like ideating together. And it was an immediate organic PLC that was very powerful. And we realized if there's three of us who have this need and are so excited to find each other, there's got to be more. So we put a piece of paper on a table at that conference and said, if you want to join a special interest group for UDL and higher education, sign this thing. We got 7 signatures. We were so excited. And we got that organization going with those 7. And I think it was last week we pushed over the 500 member mark. We now have people from literally all over the world. We've had 2 digital conferences that were the brainchild of the network, that was a bias for us type thing. We just have been fomenting this group around this shared interest of something that at the time was very specialized. Like if we fast forward to today, UDL and higher education has accelerated exponentially in the last 5 or 6 years. That's really exciting, but it's also nice to still have that network, because still to this day, people who are doing the kind of work that Jody and Kate and I are doing tend to be the one person at the university who has that job title, and who's really seen as the UDL expert. And that's not how it needs to be, but it's how it is. So having that community has been super powerful. So this is a little bit different, where on social media, you make your PLNs by finding voices, and then whatever comes to you, that's inspirational. That's new ideas for you. This model is more like we start with something and then we gather around it like a campfire, and we're going to be united on this one topic. So another example of that was earlier last year, Andretisha Fitzgerald wrote this book, many of you probably have heard of, Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning, Building Expressways to Learning. And I saw that book and I thought immediately, this is going to be very important and I need to pick it up and I want to read it. But I also know that I have a tendency to read a lot of books and be like, wow, that was wonderful. And then 2 months later, I've forgotten all about it and gone on with my life. And this was one that I felt like, this is so important. I don't want that to be the case. And one of the ways that I know that I find sustenance in my work is to learn in community, to have people who are working with me, where we're working together to put something into practice. So here I sort of stumbled into Mindy's territory and just blasted out on Twitter, hey, here's a book. Does anybody want to read it with me? Just put it out to the world. And we ended up with starting with about 25 people that were strangers to me. Said, yeah, that sounds like like fun. So we started getting together on a weekly basis to read this book together. And I'll show you, if I can share my screen a moment. We started this essentially documenting the process. So you can see here, and I'll share this in the chat as well. But I went through every week just to kind of create that campfire. And this model, you really have to have something substantial that for people to gather around. And so, I went through and we were reading a chapter at a time, and I would go in and prepare questions ahead of time. And we would come together, and depending on how many people were there, either in large group or in breakouts, we would wrestle with these questions. It ended up going from 25 to 30 to 40 people at its height. We're really using breakout rooms pretty significantly. And what happened, it was almost magical that over the course of the 11 weeks that we met together, it was the 10 chapters plus Andra Teacher herself came for the 11th week to close us out for the book. Was we went from a group of people who literally didn't even know who the others existed to really feeling like we knew each other, that we were supporting each other, that we had each other's back, and that we were co-committed to the work of practicing anti-racism through UDL in our context, whatever those happen to be. So that was, to me, extremely powerful. One of the things that we saw come out of that group as well when we finished this was an explicit conversation of now what? Because again, the whole reason I started this was because it's so easy to get great ideas and then move on with your life. And a lot of people experience that. So we talked about it. How are we going to take this book and take all these things that we've learned and make sure that we become practitioners? And so we actually did a collective brainstorm as to what some goals were that we could work towards. And then people assigned themselves to saying, that's the goal that I want to work on, to break off into smaller communities. One of these communities, the one that I'm part of now, was focused on updating the UDL guidelines and in conjunction with the mission that CAST has right now to update these to the UDL 3.0 guidelines, in which they have actively called for community involvement. And so we have tried to respond to that call, bringing with us this new lens of anti-racism and UDL to exploring how we do that. And so here again, we have a campfire that we're gathering around. This document didn't exist. This is the brainchild of about 12 people who have come together for an hour a week, week after week, and just keep chipping away at this, and you can see them, don't get seasick here. But this is one of 2 documents that we have right now. This is a lot of work. And we've shared it with the powers that be at CAST, and they're really excited to see it with the work, that they feel like this is good contribution. And it's good for us to hear that. What really allows it to happen is that, again, we have that shared value, we have a shared mission, we have a shared task. And as Sue pointed out earlier, we're working together. This is, though we have a sense of direction and leadership in this, it's very much everybody's bringing something to the table. We make copious use of comments. You can see like we left off here, or here's a conversation that we're having, but we haven't finished that conversation yet. And this is so important when you're only meeting once a week, or maybe it's once a month or once a quarter, depending on your PLC, to be able to have this sort of visible thinking documentation so that you can come back and quickly pick up the work and begin going again. So it's just a different model. To me, that model has been extremely sustaining. I feel like I'm a better teacher, a better practitioner, a better researcher, because I've gotten to have that really intense personal conversation with a group of people over time.
Thank you, Eric. I love that work. That's amazing work. And what I found so fascinating about it is that you started out as a big community, but then everyone sort of found the niche that worked for them. And you started to see sort of those spin-off communities, right? And with different work, but all really centered around that same topic. So what a great way to dig in deep on a topic you're passionate about. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Kelly, we are going to, I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can see the slides. Kelly chose to use some slides to support her conversation today. So I'll work those from this end. And Kelly, go ahead when you're ready.
Well, I mean, really, I'm using slides because today was my teach 4 classes in a row. And if I didn't, we would be off the rails in about 2 seconds. So this is really more for you all than it is for me. All right, so we're good. We can go ahead and go on to the next one. Okay, so when we think about making our PLN work for us, the most important thing is to think about how you want your PPLN to work for you. What function do you want it to serve? What is the purpose? And which is the thing that we always go back to with UDL, right? Like when we start with UDL, we always think about what is our goal? And the same thing goes for your PPLN. What is your goal? What is it that you want to get from your PPLN? So when you think about that, you also want to think about some of these elements that go with it. So one of the things that I learned very quickly was that I needed to limit my time and my consumption. If I didn't do that, I was going to just fall into that hole. And so I needed to set some limits because like both Mindy and Eric, I could have just spent forever on Twitter or on Facebook or any social media. So setting limits was very, very important. You do have to figure out what limits work for you and what is the best strategy for you. You know, is it 10 minutes at a time for, 3 short times at a go, or is it 1 30-minute chunk? Which works best for you? Figure that out and then work your way through that. So it does take a little bit of play to figure that out, but once you figure it out, you can make it work. The other thing is to know what your UDL adjacent networks are and how you can best utilize those. My UDL network is my base network. Those are the people I rely on most. But I also know that they are not the only network that I use because, I teach high school English, so I have to rely on other elements to help me inform my best practices. I teach AP Lit. When I started teaching AP Lit, I didn't know what in the world I was doing. And I found the AP Lit chat on Sunday evenings. That has been one of the most helpful Twitter chats I've ever used. And the people that I have found on there have been some of the most helpful partners in me becoming much better at teaching AP. So they are now an adjacent network. And every once in a while, I even get to throw in some UDL tips when I'm talking AP Lit to them. And I know that sometimes they're like, what? But I throw them out anyway, because you never know. They might need to know about UDL, right? The other thing is to not be afraid to use the networks that you are building. And what I mean by that is don't be afraid to ask questions. Just because it might be a network that is new to you, that doesn't mean that you can't ask questions. That doesn't mean that you can't just step out and send a message to someone who you've just interacted with for the first time. It's okay to ask questions. I mean, they might not return your message, and that's okay, but you never know until you ask. That's how I've asked a lot of questions, and a lot of things have happened as a result of that. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I tweeted about a poet because I purchased her book for my daughter for her birthday. And I was like, I just bought my daughter her first book of poetry and I'm really excited to give it to her. And I tagged the poet and, she responded to that. And while that was, it had nothing to do with anything other than it just kind of made my heart happy. But then I couldn't tell her because I hadn't given her the gift yet. But as soon as she opened her present, I was like, Audrey, you're not going to believe what the poet tweeted to you. And, what a silly thing. But gosh, what a neat thing also. And that's one of the beautiful things about just being brave enough to ask questions and to tag people and to not be afraid to know that sometimes you're just going to get complete silence, but a lot of the time you won't. A lot of the time you'll get an answer. Even if it's, I'm sorry, I can't answer you right now, but here's how I can. And that's still building your network. The other thing is knowing when you need to prune your network, because sometimes you do need to cut off some of that dead weight. Sometimes there are resources or individuals that you started off following, or people that you think, oh, this is a great follow, I'm going to learn so much from them. And then you realize they're not. And you have to think, it's time to just say no, or to unfollow, or to realize that you've moved on. And that is okay. It's okay to say goodbye. It's okay to move on. And that's okay. Sometimes you just need permission. It's okay to unfollow. So, okay, Sue, let's go ahead and move on. So this is just a quick snapshot when I was thinking through my own network of what I do and how I make my network work. And I'm not going to walk all the way through it. You can read, just like I expect my own kids to walk through and read. But I do want to take note that sometimes they don't all work in collaboration, and that's okay. They don't have to, but sometimes it's really interesting to see how they all fit together. You know, so I might learn something through UDL Chat that I then can apply to a Teach Living Poets interaction that I'm having with some of my colleagues who teach poetry. And it's really interesting to be able to slide in some of those UDL elements into a poetry lesson that we're working on collaboratively. And so it's really neat to see that. But then I will share that same lesson with my in-building colleagues. And so, you know, that's 3 network groups all in one. So sometimes those things work. The other thing that I want to mention real quick before we move on to the last one is the tech tools. Tech tools are great and using them is great, but also be wary of being overwhelmed by them. It's very easy. So just, it's okay to step back from those too. It's okay to be like, oh, no, I don't need all of those. That's okay to not use the newest, latest, and greatest. It's okay to use what you know is tried and true. All right, so last one. So those of you who know me know that reflection is like my favorite part of UDL. So I've got some reflection questions for you as we wrap up this part of our evening before we head to the breakout rooms. So what is your greatest source of reliable information, and how do you know that it's your greatest source of reliable information? And then where can you go to expand that? So I was thinking specifically about when you read or when you consume information, like articles or blog posts, do you also then follow or take note of those authors or the people who are writing? Do you then use that as a source to build your PLN? Just something to think about. And then how can you make that work for you? What's your next best step? And then think about what's your biggest question about putting your PLN to work, because you're going to have the opportunity to ask some of those questions coming up here.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, for sharing it. I think such a real detailed look at how we're going to think about our PLNs and really curate them to work for us. I really appreciated that idea of pruning too. I think we take so much and we just keep adding and adding and we forget to remove stuff. I think that's an important part of kind of every part of your life, including your PLN. So thanks for sharing that with us. I just wanted to put a quick reminder. We did have a UDL chat on September 1st. And the discussion was about your own personal learning network. And so Mackenzie's putting a link to the Wakelet. So if you didn't get a chance to participate in the chat, you can revisit it all here. There were great conversations. feel free to jump in and take a look at that. It walks you through all 5 questions and all the responses connected to it. These were a couple of the UDL faves. I just pulled a few out. Mackenzie's going to put a few links in the chat. The UDL chat, of course, showed up as one of the best ways to connect about UDL. So it's the first and third Wednesday of every month at 9 o'clock Eastern time at UDL, #UDL chat. Did I get it right, Mindy? Okay, first and third Wednesday, 9 o'clock at night. Okay. And then a few other people to follow, Jen Pasateri and her Twitter and podcast, UDL in 15 minutes with Louis Lord Nelson. There's understood.org, but that's both a website and they have a real vibrant Twitter account. And then 10 minutes with Barb and Ron. That is Ron Rogers and Barbara Green. So these are some of the favorites that came up in the chat last week. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have an opportunity for you to sit in and talk with some of the panelists tonight to ask some more questions. So we've set up some breakout sessions. These are the topics and who will be hosting them. So if you want to hear more from Kelly about where to get started with your PPLN, or from Eric about some resources for online, hybrid, or higher education in general, or from Mindy about careful curation to finding those right people and those right resources, or you can come and join with me and we'll talk about digital citizens and curation, digital citizenship and curation. Now's the time to do it. Mackenzie's going to open up the breakout rooms. Just a reminder that these are facilitated. So the idea is you bring ideas too. So we're not going to give you more information. It's really just a conversation. So find your space where you'd like to participate. And then you'll have an opportunity to select which breakout room works best for you. So Mackenzie, let us know when those are open.
So those are open. You just have to go to the bottom of your screen and click on the breakout rooms and then self-select which room you're wanting to go to.
And Mackenzie, I think because I'm logged in as I got to go to the breakout room and choose it myself, right?
Yes, you should be able to go in and choose your breakout room.
Got it.
Bottom.
Okay, so we got a few people who have not got there yet. Okay, I'm just gonna
If you're having trouble joining a breakout room, I can absolutely assign you to a breakout room. You just have to put it in the chat or unmute and tell me which one you want to go to, and I can put you in there. Sue, I'll go ahead and assign you.
You know what, though? Nobody's in there, Mackenzie, so I'm gonna just hang here till somebody decides they're going there.
Okay. It looks like there is one person.
Leslie, yeah.
Yep. You want me to assign you?
Yeah, or I'll just join.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Yeah, better assign me. Thank you.
You bet. And Lisa and Dan, you are more than welcome to stay here if you want, or if you would like me to assign you to a room, I'm more than happy to do that for you as well. Welcome back. We'll just wait for everybody to get back from the breakout rooms.
That was a nice, gentle call back, by the way, Mackenzie. I like that it didn't just like all of a sudden you were in mid-sentence and it pulled you out.
That's
Yeah, that was great. That was
happening.
nice.
I've
that
had
was
that.
nice.
I've had somebody giving me their email address and then suddenly it closes out.
Yeah. It's really, it's very abrupt. It's like the virtual hook off the stage. You're like, you're just gone.
We call it Zoom
That was very
whiplash.
nice. Yes. Yeah.
Everybody was in the middle of some conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. But that was very gentle. It was very nice. I like that.
Good.
That transition. That was
Good. So do we have
And
everybody
gentle is
close out,
not a word I'd use.
Mackenzie?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. We lost a few people, I think, in that transition there. All right, well, good. I'm glad everybody's back. We had a great discussion. I'm sure all the discussions were wonderful. Mackenzie, do we have a chance, time still to do one or two speed dating?
I think we can probably do one and then
All
we'll
right, let's do one just for fun. So what we planned to do was do a few speed dating options. I'm going to share my screen again. And here is what we'd like you to prepare, and we'll have a chance to at least meet with one other colleague. So I apologize, my mouse is so touchy today. So we're going to take just a couple minutes and randomly meet up with a colleague. And what we'd like you to do is to just share your name, talk a little bit about what brings you here tonight, and then tell your colleague what you're really into. What is it about UDL that really gets you going? And then one person that you love to follow, or one resource that you would like to share that you share with colleagues. And if you prefer not to do the speed dating, that's okay. Just don't accept the invitation and stay in the main room with us. And we'll, when everybody comes back, we'll work together to close out the evening. So Mackenzie, whenever you're ready, go ahead and you can open those up.
All right, they should be open and you should be able to join. And you're welcome to stay here in this main room with me. They'll only be in there for a couple minutes. And then if you want to be assigned, I'm happy to do that as well.
Yes, more with Ash. Well, thanks for everybody who stuck around, and thanks, Shannon, for sharing with me. That was so much fun to hear about Call Scotland. I'd never heard of that before. Anyone else heard of that? Okay, yeah. Lori's giving it a thumbs up. I'd never heard of that before. So let me just say thank you to our panelists tonight for a great night, for sharing their expertise, and for joining us in our breakout sessions and having further conversations. Just in closing, if you want to put in the chat, thinking about what's your next step for building your PLN, as Kelly said, reflecting is really what where the learning happens, and then setting the intention for what you're going to do next really solidifies that. So if you would like to share with us what you're thinking about your next step for developing your PPLN, please make sure you do that in the chat. But if not, just reflect on it and set your own intention, and that's good enough. A couple things we just want to mention. The Great Lakes UDL Experience is just right around the corner, November 2nd and 3rd. It will be virtual this year, so everybody, even those of you who are outside of the Great Lakes, may want to come in and join us. And we'll be talking about UDL and learning environments and space design. We'll be talking about UDL, equity, inclusion, diversity. We'll be talking about UDL and executive function. So lots of topics that are of interest to K-12 educators and potentially for higher ed educators as well. So join us if you can. Registration is open. Mackenzie will put the link in the chat for those of you who are ready to sign up tonight. And just a reminder that the IRN Summit is just around the corner. Also, that's will be March 30th through April 1st. Again, it will be online and on demand. And I believe the call for presenters is open, Mackenzie, is that right? Yep. So if you would love to share and extend your PLN or your information, your thoughts and ideas about UDL, join us, put in for a presentation. We would love to have you. And finally, the UDL chat, as I mentioned earlier, first and third Wednesday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then finally, just a thank you again to Eric Moore, Dr. Eric Moore, and for Midi Johnson, and for Kelly Culp for sharing their expertise with us. And thank you for coming tonight. We really do appreciate you joining us and being a part of the UDL IRN and UDL Cast family. So thank you. Kenzie, you want to say anything?
Thank you all for coming. It was a fabulous evening. I think great conversations were had, and I personally have some good tips to walk away with.
Thank you. Everyone have a great night.
Thanks for hosting.